Well, good morning. Today is Thursday, December 26th, 2019. My name is Mitchell Meyers, and I have the honor and privilege of interviewing Michael Eisenberg for the Dallas Jewish Historical Society, taking oral history for Michael. Thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure being here.
So, when were you born?
December 26, 1948.
So happy birthday.
Thank you, thank you.
It's fantastic you get to do this on your birthday.
Fantastic, I'm still alive.
And tell us where you were born.
I was born in the old country, Dallas, Texas.
Very nice. And were your parents born here as well?
My parents were born in Kansas City, Missouri. Moved here in 1948.
Tell me their names.
Marion Eisenberg, Marion Lee Masonoff Eisenberg, and my dad was Leo Eisenberg. They weren't able to afford a middle name because they weren't that wealthy, so it was just Leo Eisenberg.
Leo Eisenberg. So why did your parents select your name, Michael?
It was from my father on my mother's side, Morris, who passed away before I was born.
And tell me a little bit about how your family came to live in Dallas, Texas from Kansas City, Missouri.
So my dad had 3 brothers who was told that Dallas was the golden city to go to, and they started in the scrap business about 46, 47. And my parents got married in 48, and they said, come on down, we got a good job for you. And they moved down, hardly knew anybody down here, but they were here for a long time.
So they had family down here before?
No, they had no family. No
just
family,
friends?
just a friend. They had a brother-in-law who was down here. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any brothers or sisters?
I have 2 sisters. Marcia is the middle. She lives here in Dallas. And my sister Wendy is in Austin.
Okay. So where did you go to elementary school?
It was just recently destroyed, Walnut Hill Elementary. And then I went to Cary Junior High, also destroyed. And then we moved from that area into the more Jewish section, and I ended up going to Hillcrest High School.
Okay, and why was it destroyed?
The tornado, they just hit a little bit of the J here, so it was hit pretty hard. And they're not talking about, they're not going to rebuild it, I don't think.
So grandparents, can you tell a little bit about your grandparents?
So I had a wonderful grandmother on my mother's side, Alice Weinstein. Get a little misty about it. She was a wonderful person, and didn't really. My grandfather I was 6 when he died, so I didn't get to know him on my father's side. But my boobie on my dad's side, she all grew up in Kansas City. But when all her kids moved down to here, they moved down here. I had her for a good 20, 30 years, and she was a wonderful person.
That's nice. And tell me, this is your mom's mom? Or?
My mom's mom was Grandma Alice, and my dad's mom was Booby.
Booby. And so what was about Grandma Alice that you loved so much?
She's very sweet, always took my side. She just was a wonderful woman.
So tell me a little bit about your childhood growing up. I mean, you know, the fun that you had, or going to school. What did you like to do?
Yeah.
A little bit about that.
So as you well know, Mitch, we had a great group of friends from junior high on, and our big passion was playing sports, and we evolved into having a regular. After school, we'd go play basketball here. I'm sure I'm repeating a lot of the stuff that we've all had the other interviews. We played basketball here, football and baseball, and we developed our tradition of playing football here on Christmas Day. We just played our 55th game yesterday, and we like to do that. We weren't the suavest kids around.
So who are some of the friends that you were growing up with that you're talking about now?
So, of course, the Meyers family. I first met all the Meyers and the Gutos and the Gallants and the Shores. We were all pretty close. We were all in Kaplan AZA together. We're all very competitive athletically and comedically, and all that stuff. We always tried to out-top each other. And I first met Mitch when he was selling lemonade on the corner of Mason Hills. Our favorite rapport is, "Hey, Izzy, buy some lemonade!"
So we'll get back to the classic in a second. So was your family religious at this time? Were you?
They were conservative. We went to Shereth Israel. I was bar mitzvahed and confirmed and all that stuff. And then I became very irreligious and have declined over the years as I've really lost my faith.
You want to talk about that, or you want to keep that for
don't,
later?
You know, my first disappointment was I get in college and I realize that I can read Hebrew and speak it, but I don't know what it means. I was only taught so I could get bar mitzvah and do the traditions and stuff like that, and that was a little disheartening. And you know, there's just more and more stuff that makes me believe that there isn't a God. The Holocaust. Why were the Jews freed from slavery and the African Americans weren't? You know, I don't want to get off on this too much.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
So you talked about being part of AZA, Kaplan AZA, and you had these great friends, and you started this Christmas. Well, it became a Christmas Day Classic. Can you talk a little bit about the Classic and how it evolved and to what it is now?
Right. So, as I said before, we were all into athletics. You know, none of us were that great. We thought we were, except for Mitch. He was really good. And AZA brought, you know, we were offered the opportunity to play athletics in AZA, so we always did that, and it was always fun competition. And as I said earlier, you know, Jewish kids didn't have anything to do on Christmas, so we always played football. It just evolved into a great tradition that we've kept up over the years, and it's a way for us to keep our friends together and everything like that.
So as I understand it, it started as playing tackle football, right?
Tackle football. If I have one sage advice for the future generations, don't play tackle football or you'll end up like me. Every part of my body is broken. But it was great, and we still enjoy it to today, even just standing out there.
So clearly it's less about football than it is about being friends and friendships. And
Exactly, well put. It gives us a good opportunity to come, and you know, we're all over the country now, and fewer and fewer of us come each year, but we still offer an opportunity to get together, and you know, we have our pre-game party and a lot of good bullshit there. Or not.
That's good. So let's go a little further. Let's talk about high school. So you said you moved from the TJ area. Now you're going to go to Hillcrest High School. Same friends or friends that you were with, Kaplan? And
most of my friends, you know, I grew up and went to Walnut Hill and Cary. I had friends there, but when we got into AZA and I was much more of a cultural Jew, and my friends gravitated to being Jewish, and so when we moved out of the TJ area, it was pretty much a lot of Jewish friends the rest of my life.
so when you went to high school, can you talk about some of the influences at the time, whether it was music or culture or what you were getting into? Here you're getting older, right? It's moving away from just football games and watching stuff on TV.
More social stuff, trying to get a girlfriend. Had one, she dumped me. We just enjoyed company. That, you know, the AZA offered a lot of social opportunities, and we'd have house parties and do that. And we had a little social activism every now and then. That was just the beginnings of the Vietnam War and integration. And some of us were more active than others, but we all pretty much were. Most of us, we would probably be classified as liberals and progressive, and growing in that direction from high school on.
So there were, before, I guess, high school, or I don't, you tell me, but one of the, several of the impacts that had impact your life was President Kennedy here in Dallas getting shot.
Right, I was at the airport. I saw him come in, get off the plane. we left from there. We'd skipped school. My mom took us out of school, and we went to a hamburger place called Daddy-O's over by Walnut Hill, and we heard on the radio that he'd been shot and killed. And my mom, who was a big liberal, totally freaked out. She just left us. She ran out of the restaurant, and we didn't know where to go. We were just sitting there. It was terrible. And then I was in Sunday school when Jack Ruby, who was a member of Sheriff Israel, killed Oswald. So it was one of those. Our big debate was whether to have the Kaplan Charter dance that next week. We did. He would have wanted us to do that.
That's great. So I'm glad that went on. So now high school's wrapping up and you're getting ready to go to college. Where'd you go to school?
So I was I was convinced I should get away and branch out. So I went to Washington University in St. Louis, and I was going to be I wanted to be an astronaut, and I was there for a year, and I missed my friends, and I was not going to become an astronaut. I couldn't do differential equations, and so as we all gravitated back to UT in Austin, and I went there in '68 and I've been there ever since.
And you live in Austin now?
I live in Austin now.
Very nice. So now Austin, 1968, this is even a more of a tumultuous time, right? You got the Vietnam War, you got Martin Luther King, Bobby Kennedy.
Right.
Tell me about what's going on there with you.
I became more politically active. I really wasn't that active, but those circumstances sort of brought that on, and we had our protests. We spent the night on the South Mall at UT after Kent State, after the student killings in Kent State, and we marched on the Capitol, and I remember getting tear gassed. Everybody was getting tear gassed, and running from the Capitol, and this woman who I knew, Dorothy Pringler, runs past me like I'm walking. So it was quite a memorable period of time.
When you say marched on the Capitol, in Austin or Washington, D.C.?
In Austin.
In Austin, okay.
Yeah.
So what did you study in college?
So I got out of aerospace engineering and went into chemistry. My mom was a chemist, taught at the community college. She ran a lab at that, so I thought, well, maybe I can do that. I couldn't do that. So I switched to sociology, got a degree in sociology, and my funny story there is I graduated from UT in December of 1971. We went to play our Christmas Day football game. I got knocked unconscious. I wake up, my old roommate's standing over me, and he goes, he says, "Are you all right?" I said, "Yeah, I think I'm all right." He says, "Do you know where you are?" I said, "No, I don't know where I am." He says, "Do you know what day it is?" I says, "No, I don't know what day it is." He says, "Do you know you just graduated from college?" And I go, "I did?" I said, "What did I get a degree in?" And he said, "You got a degree in sociology." And I go, "Sociology? What am I going to do with that?" Like my first realization that was one of the worthless degrees. But I actually had a career doing program evaluations and statistical analysis, stuff like that, so it really paid off.
It did help you.
Yeah.
That's great. So after your college years, did you move back to Dallas? Did you stay in Austin?
Stayed in Austin. I stayed since '68, so what does that make it? 51 years.
You've been there a while.
Yeah.
So you talked about your Jewish identity, but losing it a little bit, and now, is it any change?
Well, my wife was a good Jewish woman. I met my wife when I was working at this child care program, and I was supervising social work students doing their internship. And she came driving up in what I thought was a real fancy sports car, and she's all dressed up as opposed to the other interns. And I go, "Oh, damn it, I got a Jap coming in." She was the poorest Jewish girl out of Dallas there ever was. But we got married, we had 2 daughters, and if it hadn't been for her, they both got bat mitzvah and went to Hebrew school, and now they've lost their Jewish identity. But but we still had Passover, and we had a hell of a Hanukkah party the last week, and so we do cultural Jewish stuff.
Well, that's good. So let me digress just
I'm
one
sorry.
second. So don't be sorry. So in college, I heard that you did a movie. Can you tell us about the movie you were in?
We had we had a friend of ours who wanted to be a comedy writer or performer, and so he wrote a script to develop that he could show, and we did a movie that he could show as part of his portfolio called Kung Ju, about a Jewish mystic. I don't know if anybody will ever remember there was a Kung Fu, which was the Asian version of Kung Ju, or vice versa, where he would go from town to town righting wrongs, and I got to play the lead character, Shame, and we had Shame could do martial arts, and he would defend the innocent, and of course there was the line where the gangsters were afraid of Shame, and the protagonist would say, "Don't worry, I'm not going to sick shame on you," which is a miserable line. That's why it may have taken him many years to become a successful writer.
Who was the writer?
Gary Jacobs.
Gary Jacobs.
Gary Jacobs.
He went on to become a famous guy.
He became a great writer, made a lot of money, he's worked with a lot of famous people. But I don't think he ever showed it as a vehicle to get himself a job.
Did you get anything from the movie?
We have used lines from Kung Ju for many years. We're not ashamed of repeating anybody else's work our whole lives.
So, that's great. Congratulations on the movie. Any other movies come out of it?
That was about it. I've been proposing Shame 2, The Return of Kung Fu 2, Kung Ju 2, The Return of Shame, but nobody's buying it.
Nobody's buying it yet? Well, keep it going. You never know. So, during this tumultuous time, you're getting out of college. You're now knocked out. You're in the hospital room. You've actually graduated without knowing that you've graduated. So, how did all this shape you as an adult for your next steps? All that.
Very poorly, very poorly. I graduate, I go, now what am I going to do? So, once you get your undergraduate degree and you don't know what you're going to do, graduate school. So, I went to graduate school, but I was determined to try and support myself. So, I found a job in this after-school child care program for low-income working parents. I had worked 3 summers at the Temple Emmanuel Day Camp, which provided me enough experience that I could get this $200 a month job after school, and did it for 7 years. It was one thing that I was most proud of in my life. It helped poor working families, and I actually in Austin they integrated the schools in the 6th grade. Kids would come from 5th grade elementary schools, and then they'd move them all into a 6th grade center, and that would be their first experience with other races and ethnic groups. And my boss, who was saying, came up with this idea to have a camp for these kids. For all the kids that were going into each of the feeder schools, they would spend 1 week in a sleepaway camp, and have teachers be the counselors, so they get to know each other, and you make real good friends in the dark when you're in the 6th grade. So it was a great vehicle to initiate integration, and I was the camp director there for 5 years, and it was a lot of fun. It was really a great experience.
So how long did you have the job?
So I graduated UT in '71. I went to graduate school from '72 to '75. At the same time, I was working the after-school program, and then the whole organization evolved from 1 school to 60 schools, and I became the HR director and the supervisor of social work students doing their experience there.
So there's one internship put you into touch with this job for a number of years.
Right.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Right. But I never made any.
Never made any money.
Never.
Well, there's other things that are more important than money at that time, right?
Yeah.
So what other work that you did or projects, any civil or civic organizations that were memorable to you?
I was on the board of Big Brothers Big Sisters for a couple of years. I was a Big Buddy. There was a Big Brother program, but this was a Big Buddy program with a mentally disabled kid, and I was his big buddy for longer than we should have, for about 7 years. I was still had roommates in college, and my little buddy Johnny Brown would phone us up at 6 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, and my roommates weren't happy about that. But we stayed together for a long time, and I want to think I did good for him. And I was an umpire here at the J for a couple of summers. Thankless job.
Softball, baseball?
Baseball. I was abused by kids of all ages, rock throwing, ignoring me.
Did Hank Bodner hire you?
Coach Hank Bodner, the J coach, got me the job and then refused to pay me for half the games I umpired. You go, Eisenberg, you're talking crazy. You didn't do all those games. Here's $50 for the summer.
So, when you're married, you said, tell me your wife's name.
Laura Eisenberg, Laura Landy Eisenberg. We met when I supervised her as an intern. She also went to work for the organization I was working for. That was the after-school child care. It was called Extended Care, and we both worked at a couple of schools for a couple of years. Then we got married in '77, and we both left Extended Care in '79. And she went to nursing school, and I got a job with the state parole board, who is trying to figure out a better way to decide who should get paroled and who shouldn't. And I had some of those skills to do a prediction instrument that was becoming popular across the country. So I did that for 10 years, and then went to another state agency that just did criminal justice policy evaluation, and what we would look at things that the legislature had passed and try and determine if they were being effective or not, or if they needed to be changed, things like that. So that was a pretty good job.
That sounds like an interesting job.
Yeah.
And you said you had children, 2 daughters. Tell me their
Daughters,
names.
Anna and Emily. They're now 35 and 38.
And they live in Austin?
They live in Austin. One lives real close to us. They both live pretty close to us, so it's nice. One has lived in San Francisco and Michigan and all over, but she decided to come home, and not married, no grandchildren, but they're happy.
Well, that's good. How did you choose their names?
You know, I don't know. We went through a bunch of names, and then we decided my first daughter, Anna, maybe after a great aunt, and Emily was after all the wild children I knew that were named Emily. So they've been great kids.
And as you said, your wife really got you back into Judaism. Your daughters were bat mitzvah in Austin.
Right. We're a member of Reform Synagogue. We're sort of like 3-day-a-year Jews. A lot of weddings and bar mitzvahs, though, over the years. My mom had a very large family, and they all stayed in Kansas City, so we've been to dozens of bar mitzvahs and weddings up there. They were a much tighter knit family, and staying very Jewish over the years than we are. And I don't know, if it has to do with having all the family there and being very observant, and we're in Dallas and not so much family, so I don't know.
Could be. That's a good point.
But they have their troubles.
So before we get on to winding down the interview, everybody calls you Izzy. Can you tell us how that came about?
It's such a boring story.
You want to skip it?
Well, let's just say there were a lot of Michaels in my group. And so we all started going by last name, and Eisenberg got to be too long, and it got to be Izzy, and it got to be Izzy, and that's it. Is everybody asleep yet?
Well, I call you Izzy. So thanks for letting me know what that's all about. So just to wind it down a bit, what advice do you have for your kids, that are going to see this video, maybe for now or for the future? I'm sure you've already told them, but if you want to tell them.
Well, I mean, I think they've learned from us, just observing that friends and family are very important. For people my age, I would advise them, take better care of your body when you're younger, because I'm a mess. I'm still here.
Also, what legacy do you want to leave for the next generation of young Jewish boys and girls that you can talk about, that you were, if somebody would have given you advice when you were at Cary or Walnut Hill Elementary School?
Nobody gave me any advice, and I'm not that sage to give other people advice. Just don't be afraid to get out there and do stuff.
Well, that's great. So Izzy, I really appreciate you sitting and having this oral history for the Dallas Jewish Historical Society, and I thank you very much, and it's been a pleasure to talk to you.
I love you, Mitch.
I love you too.
Don't edit that.